Hi everyone, I'm Shelley and you're watching There's No Place Like Home. This is the second time that I am trying to upload this video, so hopefully this time it takes. But I wanted to do another question the narrative video, and I wanted to talk about the Great Fires of the United States. So I mentioned the Great Fire of Chicago in my World's Fair video. It happened in 1871, which was about 20 years before they built the World's Fair in Chicago. And I mentioned how I thought it was strange that the entire city was decimated. There were 100,000 homeless people, and yet they still would take the time to build over 100 buildings in the World's Fair. That was 700 acres, and the University of Chicago as well. And so the thing is that I've discovered through thanks to a lot of other really great channels like John Levi, Autodidactic, Howdy McCoskey, is that Chicago was not even close to being the only city in the United States to experience a great fire where the entire city was decimated. In fact, if you would actually search almost any major city that existed in that time period, there was a great fire between, I'd say, mid-1800s to early 1900s. There was a great fire that would decimate the entire city. And the thing is that when you are looking into this era, there are a lot of really strange things, like the World's Fairs that we have a lot of questions about, like how a lot of these buildings were built that we have a lot of questions about. And then on top of that, we have not the World's Fairs, the Great Fires. So I'm just going to show you what I'm talking about. Another funny thing is that a lot of these great fires, they will actually give you like really funny answers for how they got started. For the Great Chicago Fire, what they had originally said was that it was started by a cow that knocked over a lantern and it like burned down the whole city. And so now, I've seen other sites saying that that's not what happened, and that certainly doesn't seem like that's what happened. But even for one of the cities that I'm going to be showing you, it said that one spark burned down, well, not burned down, but one spark started a fire that burned down an entire city. And yes, it's entirely possible. But just what are the odds that almost every major city in the United States experienced a city decimating fire in this very strange time period? So let me just show you. So, and I encourage you to do this on your own. Type in Great Fire into your search bar and just start searching cities. Now, I'm doing major cities just because I think that it's, there's a better chance that you're going to be able to find it. But even if you want to look into some smaller cities and see if they have them as well. But let's just do Boston. So the Great Fire of Boston. Great Boston Fire of 1872. Okay, so let's do Philadelphia. And so what I did before was I actually just started playing around with any city that would like pop into my head. 1856, Great Fire at Philadelphia. And what I found was that I would say probably over 90% of the cities that I typed in actually came up with a great fire. Great Fire of Pittsburgh, 1845. Okay, Dallas, Great Fire of Dallas, 1860. Now, sometimes the fire might not be one of the first that shows up when you search it, so you might have to scroll through a little bit, but very often you'll still find one. Now, Galveston, I actually had heard about on another channel, so that's why I included that here, but there was one in Galveston, 1885. Okay, there was the Great Fire of San Francisco, 1851. Okay. Let's see, New York. Now, some of them actually had multiple fires, like in different years. But yeah, they all seemed like, if you notice here, New York had one in 1776. And it also had one in 1835. Right in that time period that I'm talking about, like mid-1800s to early 1900s, when we're trying to figure out what in the world was going on in that time. Because it certainly doesn't seem like what we've been told. Here we've got 1862, the Great Fire in Buffalo. Let's see, we'll do Newark. That's one that didn't show up right away. Here we've got one, 1856 in Newark. And, I didn't even come close to doing all of the major cities in the United States, but these are just some. So this is 1805, so this is a little bit earlier, but there's still a great fire there. And I actually ended up looking up Allentown, which is not a big city. It's a medium-sized city, but I looked it up just because that's where I grew up and I wanted to know if there was a great fire there. And sure enough, this is one of those searches that it doesn't show up right away. You actually have to scroll through it for a while. But what I discovered, let me see. Last time that I was looking for it, I missed it. I don't want to miss it again. Yeah, looks like I'm missing it again. Okay, this is really strange. I had to pause it and then go back and find it because when I just did this first recording about 20 minutes ago, it showed up in the search bar for this fire, and all of a sudden it shows that I clicked on it, but it no longer talks about the fire where it shows you in the search. But so I had to click on it here, but what it says is that here in Allentown, the Allentown Fire Department, formed in 1870, owes its creation to a disaster, the Great Fire of Ascension Day, June 1st, 1848. So there was one in Allentown as well. Again, I think it's very strange that it didn't show up like it did before. But anyway, so this is something that I really encourage you to look into. Another thing that is very strange is if you look at some of these photographs. So let's look at some of the pictures of these fires. And again, even if all this does is encourage you to look into history, because history is something that is so important and it's something that we don't investigate enough because we're taught history in such a way in school that it bores most of us and it makes us just not even want to even bother looking into stuff. And I have to wonder if maybe that's done on purpose because they don't want us looking into things. But by all means, do go down those rabbit holes because there are so many things that we are not being told the truth about. So here's a picture from the Great Chicago Fire. And one thing that people have pointed out are these very strange diagonal lines that seem to appear in a lot of these fire pictures. Now, I'm not even going to pretend to know anything at all about fires or how things burn. But more than one person has found it odd that, yeah, there are these diagonal lines. They said that it seems like these fires may have been attacks. Maybe they were to cover up history, to cover up buildings that they didn't want us to know about. Some people have mentioned what they call, I think, direct energy weapons. I don't know if it's that. I have no idea. But it's just very odd that a lot of these fires have these buildings that are cut out on a diagonal. And the thing is that my nephew is a firefighter, so I could easily ask him about this and ask him if that is a normal way for something to burn. Is that the same photo as the first one? Yeah, I think so. I could ask him if that's a normal way for something to burn. But yeah, that's it too. Here's another interesting one. I didn't type in Atlanta, but Atlanta also did have a fire. I believe this one was in the early 1900s. But what is very interesting about this picture from Atlanta, and it really highlights the questions that so many people have about these fires, is that at least the ones that we have photos of, because most of them were too early, they didn't have photographs of them. But for the ones that we do, yeah, there are a lot of questions. Like a lot of them seem to show these wooden structures or utility poles, whatever they were, that seem to be, if not untouched, at least they were not damaged as much as brick structures or things built of stone that you would think would be able to withstand the heat of a fire much better than what it shows here. So if you look at this building, it says conflagration started here. So the fire started right here where the arrow is. Now, I don't know if it's pointing at like the side of the house here. I don't know if it's pointing next to the house. But the fact is that the fire started right next to this wooden house here. And while the house is badly damaged, look at it compared to the houses behind it that are brick. And that's why a lot of people are saying, were these actually fires or were these places bombed? Were they attacked? What actually happened? And a lot of the photos are going to show the same feature. So I'll show you Boston. And this is something else that I encourage you to look at on your own. So these are some photos from Boston. Again, you see these diagonal lines. So if any of you do have spouses that are firefighters, or if you are a firefighter, if they have any insight into that, I would love to know. But that's what a lot of people are questioning, is these diagonal lines that don't seem to make sense. There are actually some pictures, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to find any here, but there are some pictures that even show that in some areas it even looked like there was shrubbery that was untouched, while these brick and stone buildings around it were completely just decimated. See, more of the diagonal lines. I don't know. But what you also will see in a lot of these pictures is that it looks like these buildings crumbled. So, and I have to wonder, how hot does a fire have to get in order for a stone or a brick building to crumble like this? I mean, it definitely looks crumbled. I can't even say that these look charred at all. Again, I'm no expert. I'm just using my eyes just to wonder about all of these things. But the reason that we're asking these questions is because why are there so many of these fires nationwide all around the same time period? And I'm going to say it again, right around that time period that we're wondering what exactly happened. What exactly were these World Fairs? How exactly did all of these beautiful, intricate buildings get built by people that had horse and buggies? And I know some people, a lot of people will tell me, well, this is what I learned at university, or this is what I learned at school. And that's fine. I learned all of those things as well. But I think that when you are questioning the narrative is what you're learning in school, because what you are learning in school, you're just being given pat answers to these things. You're just learning what's in the textbooks. And if you actually look deeply into a lot of the explanations that were given, they don't hold water. They might satisfy someone who is just kind of looking for a superficial explanation for something, someone who really isn't interested in how something was done or what really happened. But these textbooks, they are part of the narrative. So you can't just go in there and assume, there's another one of those diagonal cuts. You can't just go in and assume that just because you heard it, at university or at school, that it's necessarily true. Does it mean that it's necessarily not true? No, because I think that they definitely do give you some truths within things, but you can't just automatically assume that they are true, especially if when you are trying to logistically look into the answers that they are giving you at school for how things happened in certain times. If you actually examine it and realize that there's no way it could have possibly happened the way that they are saying. And it's okay to question those things. It's not something bad to want to know what the truth is. And I have to say that when you are discouraged from speaking the truth, or not from speaking the truth, when you are discouraged from looking into something just to see if you can figure out what actually happened, it's like a red flag if they try to get you to not look into something. So now I mentioned before that some people compare these fire sites to a bombing. So right here we have a photo of the Dresden firebombing, and obviously this looks worse. But again, we've got those diagonal lines, we've got the crumbled bricks, and Dresden was bombed. And that's why there are so many people who are asking, were these actually just fires? Why did the wooden structures seem to hold up so much better than these stone and brick buildings? Do they really burn that easily? We just don't know. I'm going to see. Hold on, let me just see if I have any time. I don't think I will. I wanted to show you some more pictures of the Dresden bombing, but I don't think that I will. But anyway, that's all that I have for you today. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed yet and would like to hear more of what I have to say, I would love if you would do that. If you have any questions or comments, you might be able to leave one here because YouTube seems to have disabled my comments. And if you like my work and would like to check out my Patreon page, I will leave a link in the description box for that as well. And I hope you have a great day.